Hello everyone, today is a very historic day, November 23rd. 32 years ago on this day only, IBM introduced the first smartphone. So that is a very historic day. So 32 years ago, how many of them would have thought that this is going to change the future? So this is a reminder for us. No matter how small our beginnings are, let's start. That is something for today's motivation. So let's see the topics for today. So these are the four topics which I have taken for today, and also we'll be having one article regarding graph which we have already discussed in the early DNA. So I'll be posting the link in the description. You can click on that. Alright, so in the first article it is talking regarding the Paris Treaty. So we'll be discussing what is UNFCCC, what is Paris Treaty, why Argentina is leaving this. All these things will be discussed in the mains perspective in this particular article. Second one is talking regarding the disqualification. Speaker, the HC has told that speaker must decide. Telangana HC has told that speaker must decide on the disqualification petition. So we'll be discussing what is anti-defection law, what is this disqualification, how a member will be disqualified. All these things we'll be discussing in the second article. Third one is zone of containment. It was in the Indian Express. So here we will be discussing what is antimicrobial resistance. So what are the challenges we are facing in this antimicrobial resistance. All these things will be discussed in the third article. Okay. So this is also again another statement by the Chief Justice of India, Sanjeev Khanna. So this is talking regarding socialism in India. There was actually a case regarding the socialism which is challenging the socialism and secularism which was included in the preamble. So CJI has given a statement regarding that. So we'll be discussing what is that. And final one, that is regarding the graph 4 measures. So this we have already discussed in the earlier DNA. So the link will be posted in the comment box. You can check that. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the first article. Alright, so first one is Argentina considers Paris Treaty pullout. So what does that mean? So this is actually coming in the GS3 paper. GS3 environment. Okay. Also for both for prelims as well as mains, it is a very important topic. So here we'll be mostly focusing on what is UNFCCC and related protocols, related treaties, and regarding some of the important key things which happened in the COP29. Okay. Alright, context is Argentina. So alright, so context is the president of Argentina. So president of Argentina is checking the possibility of withdrawing Argentina from the Paris Treaty. So you might be knowing that COP29 is happening. COP29 is happening in Baku. It was happening in Baku yesterday. It concluded. So in that, many important things regarding climate finance, methane diplomacy, many things were discussed, and some of the countries showed opposition, including India. Some of the countries showed opposition to many of the upcoming decisions. Okay, so this was one of the important things which was from the Argentinian side. Okay, so let's see a previous year question which was asked in these lines. Describe the major outcomes of the 26th session of COP of UNFCCC. What are the commitments made by India in this conference? So COP is important. COP is an important topic. Whatever related to UNFCCC or maybe any other global treaties or conventions, they are very much important. Okay. All right. So let's see what is this UNFCCC, how it was created, and all the details regarding this. So UNFCCC was a product of Rio Earth Summit in 1992. Rio Earth Summit in 1992. In this early 90s or maybe in the late 80s itself, we understood that our global climate is not going in the right directions. We have to interfere. Otherwise, there will be huge problems in the future. So basically, they have identified some areas like one is climate change. Another one is biodiversity loss, and another one is desertification. So to tackle the challenges which were happening in these areas, they convened a summit known as Rio Earth Summit in 1992. It happened in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Okay, so many conventions gave out as part of this Rio Earth Summit. One was the UNFCCC. That was regarding climate change. Another one was UNCBD. United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. Another one is UNCCC. UNFCCD. UNCCD, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. So these are some of the important conventions which came out as a result of this Rio Earth Summit. Okay, so UNFCCC, the main duty of UNFCCC was to tackle climate change. Okay, so what is actually the major reason for climate change? It is global warming only. And what is actually the reason for global warming? The main reason is GHG concentration, greenhouse gas concentration. So what do you mean by greenhouse gas? Greenhouse gas means the gases which will be trapping the heat and making earth hotter. So that is actually the reason for global warming, and again it will be leading to climate change. So UNFCCC, the main purpose of UNFCCC was to stabilize this greenhouse gases. Okay, for that they created many framework, institutional framework was created. Okay, and the major purpose is to provide financial, technological and capacity building support to nations. So who will be providing support to whom? That is a very important or very valid question. So we need financial support, we need technical support and we need capacity building support to the nations. So here UNFCCC identified that developed countries are having the historical they did many things in the history past which has affected the climate. So they have the historical responsibility to tackle this climate change. So developed countries should be providing this support to developing countries or low developed countries. So this was actually the major emphasis which was given in the UNFCCC. Okay, so that principle we call it as common but differentiated responsibilities. Common but differentiated responsibility. So what is common here? Common means every nation has the responsibility to tackle climate change. So that is common. But responsibility is different. Responsibility is different. Why responsibility is different? Because developed countries has to contribute more. Developing countries has to contribute less only. Okay, so this is why it is known as CBDR. Common but differentiated responsibility. This is also one of the major criticisms of this UNFCCC. Okay, all right. So now let's see what is the COP. So every year to take decisions regarding UNFCCC, they will be conducting meetings. Whatever new additions are there, or what is there any deletions are there, means UNFCCC will be conducting the meetings, that we call it as COP or Conference of Parties. So here only the major decisions will be taken. So COP is actually the supreme decision making body of UNFCCC. Why it is not a supreme decision body? Because here the member nations will be coming, the top level ministry, even the ministerial level people of the member nations will be coming here. Okay, so this is a annual event. This is actually an annual event. For example, the first COP was COP1, second will be COP2, third will be COP3, like that. Now it is COP29. So this is actually the 29th gathering of the members of this UNFCCC, and it is actually happening in COP29 is happening in Baku in Azerbaijan. So initially COP was focusing on the technical discussions only. What do you mean by technical discussion? Technical discussions means survey reports will be there, data will be there. So countries will be coming and they will be sharing the data. They will be seeing that, okay, this is actually the emission in this country and this is actually the maybe the forest cover in this country. So it was purely a technical discussion which was happening in earlier in the COP. Later they moved on to address a major global commitment. For example, the Paris Agreement, based on which only this was in the news. Paris Agreement and also the Kyoto Protocol, both the Kyoto Protocol as well as the Paris Agreement. So these are considered as some major global commitments of this COP. Okay, all right. So we'll start with the Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto is a city in Japan. Kyoto is a city in Japan. So in 1997 means third COP, third conference of parties. It was held in Kyoto in Japan. So for example, Paris Agreement happened in Paris, COP29 Paris. So whichever place it is happening, based on that only the protocol will be named. Okay. So here they again emphasize that developing countries has to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Developing countries are having a historical contribution in this climate change. So they should be contributing more towards tackling this climate change. So that was an argument which was established here, and this was made as a legally binding. This was made as a legally binding agreement. So what do you mean by legally binding? If it is non-legally binding, means it will be voluntary only. They will be giving some suggestions, and if they are ready to accept the suggestion, they can take the suggestion. So here it was not like that. Here it is legally binding. Legally binding means what? If you are not able to reach what was being suggested, then you will have some repercussions will be there. For example, deduction of the future emission allowances will be there. So like that, some penal actions will also be there. So that is why it is known as legally binding. So what was a target which was given here? The developed countries as to maybe the industrialized countries, they have to collectively reduce the emissions by average of 5% below 1990 levels. Okay, so that is during the period 2008 to 2012. So they have to collectively reduce emissions by average of 5% below 1990 levels during the first commitment period of 2008 2012. Okay, so this is actually what it was suggested, and this was the commitment which was assigned for the developed countries and not to the developing countries. Okay, so that is one of the criticism. It is having a bias towards this developed countries should only contribute, and developing countries are not taken. The emissions by the developing countries are not taken into account. So that is one of the criticisms here. Okay, so this Kyoto Protocol devise four mechanisms to reduce the emissions. One is emission trading. Emission trading. Every country or every member country will be given a emission allowance will be there. So this can be traded. This can be traded with another country. So this is known as emission trading. Another one is clean development mechanism. So clean development mechanism means one country can support the emission reduction projects in another country. So that is known as clean development mechanism or CDM. Okay. Another one is joint implementation. Joint implementation, from the word suggesting itself, two or more countries can join together for implementing a project. For example, International Solar Alliance projects like India and France only initiate. So like that way, many countries can join together. Okay, and also compliance is also there. For example, stock taking will be there. After some time, we'll be analyzing whether this is actually a success or not. So these are actually the four mechanisms which was brought as part of the Kyoto Protocol, which happened in Kyoto in Japan as part of the COP3. Okay, so after many years, another major COP is happening, that is COP21. COP21, which happened in Paris in France, that happened in 2015. Earlier, what was the commitment? Industrial developed countries has to reduce a percentage. So that was the commitment. Here they became little more specific. So they have to limit the global warming to well below 2% above the pre-industrial levels. 2% below the pre-industrial levels, with aspirations to cap it at 1.5%. So they became more specific about the how much temperature we have to reduce. Global warming to well below 2% above the pre-industrial levels, with aspirations to cap it to 1.5 degree. Okay, so this is what another inclusive framework which was done in Paris Agreement, replacing the Kyoto framework. Okay, so another important term which came in this Paris Agreement is nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. So nationally determined contribution is every country will be setting a limit. So what a country can do. For example, India has set a goal. Okay, so by this year we'll be reducing this much emissions. We'll be moving on to this much non-fossil fuel. So like that way, every country can determine their nationally intended contributions, which is known as national NDCs. Okay, and also another important thing which came was $100 billion has to be provided annually to support the climate initiatives. So who will be providing? Here also developed countries will be providing to developing countries. Developed countries will be providing to developing countries. Okay, so this is another thing which came here, and also global stock taking will also happen every 5 years. every 5 years. Okay, for example, this happened in 2015 plus 5. So like that way, every 5 years this global stock taking will be happening to assess whether the progress we have made any progress. Okay, so these are the important things which are uh, pointed out in Paris Agreement. Okay, so India is also having our NDCs or nationally determined contribution. So what were India's targets? 2015 we gave our first NDC. We gave our first NDC and second NDC we gave in 2022. After 7 years we gave in 2022. Okay. So target for 2020 was emission intensity will be reduced. So what do you mean by emission intensity? Emission means greenhouse gas emission. For example, carbon dioxide, methane, all these things are coming in emission. Okay. So the amount of greenhouse gases produced per unit of economic activity. So that is known as emission intensity. So we committed that we will be reducing this. So earlier it was 33 to 35 percentage from 2005 levels, 33 to 35 percentage from 2005 levels. And what happened was, like, in 2016 itself we achieved 24 percentage reduction. This was the commitment we had in 2015, 33 to 35 percentage of 2005 levels. 2016 itself we achieved 24% of the reduction, and it is estimated that it have even reached 30%. So again we updated in 2022, we updated it, like we will be reducing it to 45% of the from the 2005 level. So this is actually India's updated emission statistics. And also share of non-fossil fuels in installed electric capacity. For example, solar energy, wind energy will be there, geothermal energy. All these things are non-fossil fuels or non-renewable energy sources. So earlier in 2015 we said we will be installing 40%. Now in the updated commitment we said we will be installing 50%. Okay. Alright, and also another thing is carbon sink. What do you mean by carbon sink? Carbon sink can either be natural or carbon sink can either be artificial. So carbon sink means what? Something which will be absorbing the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, so that is known as carbon sink. For example, forest is a carbon sink, even soil is a carbon sink, oceans are a carbon sink. So like that way, we have to ensure that we are trapping the carbon dioxide. Okay. So creation of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of additional sink. So mainly we will be using that through achieving that through afforestation. Afforestation means what? Planting trees. Okay, but we have not updated that. 2022 also it was a same commitment only. Okay. Alright, so these are India's commitments under Paris Agreement. Later another COP also held in Glasgow, 2021 COP at Glasgow. So here again we emphasized on the same thing only, 1.5 degree. We will ensure that we will be reducing it by 1.5 degree. So we here again we emphasized, and also another important thing is also there, that is phase down of unabated coal use and a reduction in fossil subsidies. Okay, so what do you mean by unabated coal? Unabated coal means burning of fuel, this coal without any reduction measures. For example, when thermal plant when this much pollution will be there. So we are not doing anything to do this pollution. So then it will become unabated coal use. Instead of that, we are using some filters or something. Then we are trying to abate it. Okay. So we phase down of this unabated coal use and also reduction in the fossil fuel subsidies, petroleum subsidies and all. Okay. So that was emphasized in Glasgow summit. So why some countries are opposing this Paris Agreement? Paris Agreement is something good only, which is good for the environment, good for for many reasons it is actually good. So still some countries are opposing this only. So what are the major reasons for opposition of this Paris Agreement? One is economic concerns. One is economic concerns. Economic concerns means what? Significant cost on industries and economies. For example, I will give you an example. Poland. Poland is a country which is relying mostly on the coal. So if we are moving to some other sources of electricity generation and all, Poland fears that there will be job losses. Job losses. So that is actually affecting the industry as well as economy of that country. So Poland is somewhat not going with this. And also there are issues of national sovereignty. A very good example will be US under the Donald Trump administration. Okay, so the nations try to determine its own policies. For example, if tomorrow somebody is coming and telling that the security policy of this country should be determined according to this, okay, then major opposition will be there. Some countries are arguing that even environmental policies are also national sovereignty. Okay, so this is the basis why which Donald Trump, US under Donald Trump administration, Trump 1.0. Okay, so they withdraw. Another thing is unequal burden. Unequal burden. Developing nations are not contributing enough. This is one argument which India is putting forward. Developed countries have their own contribution. So they are not giving it according to, for example, like US and all, they are not ready to give based on their historical contribution in climate change. Okay. Another thing is non-binding nature. Even though it is binding, we don't have any enforcement mechanism to properly check that. So it is kind of working like a non-binding mechanism. Another thing is the effectiveness of this Paris Agreement itself is questioned. Okay, some people are arguing that whatever this Paris Agreement is suggesting, that is not enough. That is not enough to meet all these things. Okay, so that is also questioned. So these are some of the reasons why which people are, or maybe nations are opposing this Paris Agreement, and some countries are threatening to withdraw from this Paris Agreement. US already did that. So what is actually the mechanism for withdrawing from this or exiting from this Paris Agreement? So it is mentioned in Article 28 of the Paris Agreement. Article 28 of the Paris Agreement. So Article 28 of the Paris Agreement says that every nation will be ratifying this Paris Agreement. So after ratifications, after 3 years only, they can withdraw from this agreement. If they have ratified, after ratification, after 3 years only, they can actually withdraw from this agreement. So even after withdrawing also, it will take effect only after 1 year. Okay, so after ratifying, again it will take 3 years. So sorry, after ratification, after 3 years only, they will be able to withdraw from this agreement, and also it will take effect only after 1 year. Okay, so this is mentioned in Article 28 of the Paris Agreement. So how this process is actually done? UNFCCC is obviously a United Nations body. So notification has to be submitted to the um, United Nations. So after that, there is actually a mandatory period, mandatory waiting period is there. So after that only it will be considered. Okay, so this is the mechanism of exiting from Paris Agreement. So why Argentina is saying that they want to exit from this Paris Agreement? I already mentioned what are some of the oppositions which are faced in this Paris Agreement. So why Argentina wanted to exit from this Paris Agreement? One, Argentina is mostly relying on fossil fuel exports. Fossil fuel exports. So they are saying that it is going to affect their economy if they are continuing in this Paris Agreement. And also Argentina is having a history of inconsistent climate policy. Sometimes they will be more focused towards climate policy, and after some time it might not be the case. So that is also there. Another thing, what will happen to Argentina if they are exiting from the this Paris Agreement? One thing, the countries can isolate Argentina diplomatically. Argentina is not that kind of a country like compared to US and all. So that will be definitely affecting the diplomacy of this country. One possible thing is carbon border taxes can be imposed. That is CBAM. 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 CBAM also we have discussed in one of our DNA sessions. So that link will also be posted in the comment box. You can check that. Okay. Carbon border adjustment mechanism. So carbon border adjustment mechanism is like if one country is importing something, or maybe one company from one country is importing something from another country which is not following this kind of climate policies and all, then that additional tax can be imposed on that particular product. Okay, so that is known as carbon border adjustment mechanism. So obviously, if Argentina is moving away from this Paris Agreement, products from Argentina will be also uh, getting this will be taxed under this carbon border adjustment mechanism. Okay, so that's also going to affect Argentina. Next one, COP and its significance. COP29 and its significance. So COP29 happened in Baku. Yesterday only it got concluded. So many important decisions were taken in that. So COP29 was mostly focusing on the loss and damage funding. Loss and damage funding means we have already made so much loss as well as damage. So how we can financially help, especially the vulnerable countries. So that is loss and damage funding. Okay, so for that many things regarding climate finance were discussed. What can be the better climate financial mechanism. So that was one of the important things which was discussed here. Okay, and also nations has to update and enhance their nationally determined contributions. So first it was updated in 2000, first it was given in 2015, later it was updated in 2022, and now again they are going to they want to update. Okay, and also things regarding methane diplomacy were also in discussion. Methane to reduce the methane emissions. So that was also there. Okay. All right. So let's see what is actually the future of this global climate actions. Enforcing climate actions with incentives like carbon pricing. And also we have already discussed CBA, carbon border adjustment mechanism. So this will ensure that more countries are climate action oriented. Improve accountability through transparent reporting. Transparent reporting in Paris Agreement, one of the important provisions of Paris Agreement is transparent reporting. Every 5 years will be stock taking. Okay, invest in renewables and clean energy technologies like green chemistry and these kind of technologies. And also India is also planning more solar plants. So like that, it has to be invested. Engage business and communities in climate project. It should not be in the nation level itself. It should not be in the government level itself. We have to ensure that NGOs are involved, even businesses are involved, even private players are also involved in this. Okay, provide financial aid to developing nations. This is one of the commitment which was there in Kyoto as well as Paris Agreement. So we have to transition to renewable energy to cut the emissions. Okay, so these are this is actually the future of global climate efforts. So let's see a mains practice question. Discuss the challenges faced by Paris Agreement in maintaining global participation, particularly in the light of recent withdrawals or consideration of withdrawal by member countries. You can take the Argentina example. How do these actions impact the effectiveness of international climate change mitigation efforts? So you can start by what is Paris Agreement, what is actually the purpose, what is climate governance, all these things, and also you can mention regarding this Argentina example, or maybe the Trump administration, the Trump 2.0 has given. So there are fears that even Trump will also be accepting the Paris Agreement for the second time. Okay, so in the body you can write what are the reasons for withdrawal or consideration of withdrawal. Economic concerns, national sovereignty, even like how India has mentioned it, like unequal burden, developing countries are not contributing. So all these things you can mention. What is actually the impact of this climate mitigation efforts? It will undermine a collective climate action, and also financial implications will also be there. After that, you can give a way forward like what we have discussed. Okay, more financial support should be needed, equitable burden sharing should be needed. So like that way you can give a way forward, and also NGOs and other business players has to be involved. Finally, you can conclude it by saying that we need a sustainable international cooperation. Okay, all right, moving on to next topic. So in this topic, we'll be discussing regarding anti-defection law. Anti-defection law as well as 10th schedule. This was actually a judgment by, a comment by the Telangana High Court. Okay, speaker must decide disqualification petitions within reasonable time. Okay, so we'll see what is this disqualification, what is 10th schedule, what is speaker's laws. All these things will be discussing in this article. So this is important from the GS paper 2. GS paper 2 polity, Indian Constitution. We'll see a previous year question. Direct question. Which one of the following schedules of Constitution of India contains provisions regarding anti-defection law? It was asked in 2014. A very direct question. Alright, so context is Telangana High Court ruled that speaker must decide the disqualification petitions of 3 MLAs who switched from BRST Congress within a reasonable time overturning a previous order. Earlier there was a single bench order, so now the division bench is saying that they have overturned the previous order. Okay. Alright, so let's see what is this anti-defection law. So before moving on to what is anti-defection law, we need to understand what is this term defection. What do you mean by defection? So political defection, when types of defections are there? Political defection means changing the party allegiance. Changing the party allegiance by electoral legislators. For example, a party allegiance can change anytime. For example, if I am believing in one party, yeah, maybe my ideals are not matching with the current ideals of the party, I can change the party. But for an electoral legislature, it is not that is not fair. Okay, why? Because the person might have been elected from party A. He might have been elected from party A. So what he will be doing after getting MLA or MP, after becoming MLA or MP, while being in the same party itself, he will be switching to party B. Party B. Earlier, before this act, 1985 and all, it was known as IRM, GARM. So they will be coming to elected through one party, and after that they will be by being MLA or MP itself, they will be moving on to another party. This was a very big issue for many people. So what happened was like to tackle that only, we amended the constitution in 1985 during Rajiv Gandhi's period. 52nd constitutional amendment was brought. 52nd constitutional amendment was brought, and we inducted a schedule also known as the 10th schedule, which will be dealing with the provisions of anti-defection. So what is the main purpose of this? To tackle this only, discouraging the elected officials from switching parties after election. So that was the main purpose of implementing this anti-defection law. Now let's see how, in which all ways a person can be disqualified under this anti-defection law. Alright, so see this flowchart. So the grounds of defection can vary for different types of legislation. For example, if it's an independent candidate without any party, so once he is elected and after that he joins a party after election, he can face disqualification. And also, if a member of a political party votes or abstains contrary to party decision. For example, if I am elected and now I am part of the ruling party, and some law is being the government has introduced some law, and I am opposing that law. Against the party will. So at that time also, I can be disqualified under I can be disqualified. And also for nominated member, nominated members in Rajya Sabha we have nominations based on some criteria. Lok Sabha also we had. So if the nominated member joins a party after 6 months, after getting his membership, he is joining the party after 6 months. At that time also he can be disqualified. So who has the power to disqualify? It is a speaker of the chairman. Either the speaker or the chairman, they will be deciding the, if it's in Lok Sabha, the speaker will be deciding. If it is in Rajya Sabha, the chairman will be deciding. So basically the chairperson of that particular house will be deciding, and the decision is final. Technically the decision is final. Later some changes were there, but still as of earlier it was like that decision was final. And the major issue here was like there is no limit for the decision, no time limit for taking the decision. That we will be discussing later, but still. And also we have exceptions also. Exceptions in the sense merger. For example, if a party A merges with party B, then it cannot be considered as a defection. So that is what it is saying. And also for the merger, at least 2/3 of the members of the party, they have to concur on it. Then only this defection rules will be not applicable. Okay. Right. Now let's see what is actually the role of speaker. I've already mentioned what is the role of speaker. So speaker is the ultimate authority. Speaker is the ultimate authority. As per the law, speaker is the ultimate authority in deciding this. Okay. So he is responsible for deciding whether a legislator should be disqualified under Schedule 10 of anti-defection law. So what are the challenges in this speaker's role, which again was challenged in many cases in Supreme Court as well as state courts. So there is no lack of clarity in the time frame. For example, the speaker can decide accordingly whenever he wants. He can decide. There is no time bound. The decision need not be in a time bound way. So that is also one very important problem. And also, speaker is having a discretionary power in this regard. What do you mean by discretionary power? So the speaker, every legislature will be belonging to a political party or an independent. So obviously they will be having party bias will be there. Party bias will be there. So there is no rule book like this has to be done according to this and all. No, mainly it is the one main criteria which is deciding this is the speaker's discretionary power. So that is also, so sometimes the speaker will be acting on the party lines only, even though speaker need not be like this, he should be acting on the party line. So that is also another important issue. Okay, so some important cases were there in many courts regarding this. The most famous one is the Quixote Olohan vs Sahilu, which was in 1992. So in this particular case, the Supreme Court upheld that anti-defection law is correct. There is no, it's constitutionally valid, but still the speaker's decision will be coming under limited judicial review. The speaker's decision will be coming under limited judicial review. So that is what in this Quixote Kolohan vs Sachilu case it was decided. And in the Revius Naik vs Union of India, the court ruled that speaker decision was unlawful if it was made after stay order from a high court. The legislature can go to the high court, and at that time only if the speaker is deciding, then it can be termed as unlawful. Okay. Another thing, in another important case, Rajendra Singh Rana vs Swami Prasad Maurya in 2007, the court said that the speaker cannot initiate the disqualification process. Speaker can decide on the disqualification process, but it cannot initiate the disqualification process. Before that, a petition has to be filed in front of the speaker. After that only, you will be able to decide on this. Okay. Another thing is Kesham Meghachandra Singh was the Honorable Speaker of Manipur Legislative Assembly. This is a very recent case. So here only the court has emphasized that there should be a reasonable time frame. Mostly the speaker will be holding the decision until the legislator's time tenure is itself is over. So that kind of situation has also happened. So here the in this judgment the court is saying that there should be a reasonable time frame. Again, this in the Telangana High Court also reiterated the same thing only. Okay, so we had some committees which recommended few things regarding this. One is Dinesh Goswami committee, very famous committee regarding electoral reforms and all. So one important thing the Dinesh Goswami committee said that disqualification will apply only if the member resigns or votes against the confidence or non-confidence motion. It should be non-confidence or confidence motion. Other than that, if it's a normal below something, even if he abstains also, that should not be considered. So that is what Dinesh Goswami committee recommended. And also another recommendation was like the president on the election commission's advice should decide on the disqualification. As of now, it is not the president, but it is a speaker who is deciding. So that should not be the case. The president on the advice of election commission will be doing this. Another thing is law commission. 1999 law commission was there. So exception for splits and mergers should be removed. As of now, I have already mentioned what is actually the exception for split as well as mergers according to this. So that should also be removed. And also they also said that the pre-poll alliances will be there. Right? Pre-poll alliances. Before the election itself, some parties will be in alliance and they will be distributing the candidates accordingly based on their agreement. So that should be considered as a single party. So that was also recommended by the Law Commission. Another one is Constitutional Review Commission 2002. Okay, so they recommended that defectors should be banned from holding public offices for rest of their term. Okay, so 2002 we had a Constitution Review Committee. So they recommended this. Okay, so this is regarding anti-defection law. Now let's see a prelims practice question. So consider the following statements about anti-defection law. Members can be disqualified for voluntarily quitting their party or defying party directives in voting. As of now, this is true. Decision on disqualification under the law is made by the speaker or chairman of the respective house. Speaker in case of Lok Sabha and chairman in case of Rajya Sabha. So both the statements are correct. Okay. So correct answer is C. Alright, let's move on to next topic. Again, this is also regarding a statement by Supreme Court Chief Justice only. Okay. Alright, so he said that socialism in India means a welfare state and not a dictatorial dogma. Okay, so we'll be discussing what is the socialism, what is the concept of this welfare state. So this will be coming under paper 2 of GS, paper 2 of GS. Okay, so let's see a previous year question which was asked in same lines. Discuss each adjective attached to the word republic in the preamble. Are they defendable in present circumstances? Okay, so this was a question which was asked. So let's see what is actually the context. Recently, former Rajya Sabha member Subramaniam Swamy and some others, so they challenged the inclusion of socialist and secular in preamble. Okay, so this was added in the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. So these people, Subramaniam Swamy and others, they have challenged the inclusion of these terms. Okay, now the Chief Justice of India has clarified that socialism in India is not a rigid dogma, but it is actually something which was created, which is existing to create a welfare state. Okay, so that is what Chief Justice has said. Alright, so we'll see what is socialism. What is the concept of socialism? So socialism is actually, we have different ideologies like communism is there, socialism is there, capitalism, like that we have different ideologies are there. So this is basically a political as well as economic ideology. So which is based on collective ownership. Collective ownership means what? Ownership of the society. Collective ownership means ownership of the society. For example, take a limited society. We can extend or maybe reduce the society to our convenience. For example, take some workers who are working in the agriculture or coal mine sector. So they can actually create a welfare cooperative bank or something they can create. So that can be considered as a collective ownership. And also if you are extending the scope of that, then the government is actually the owning the railways. Government is owning many things. The government means what? Government means people only, right? So that can also be considered as a collective ownership. Okay, and another important thing of socialism is social equality will be there. We have universal healthcare systems. Universal healthcare system means what? So no one should be discriminated based on anything. For example, take this universal adult franchise. Whoever has crossed the age of 18, they are eligible to vote irrespective of any other factor. So this is making something known as social equality, not based on caste, not based on anything. So like that. Another one is equitable distribution of resources. Equitable distribution of resource means what? Land reforms in Kerala. Take the example of after independence, we had land reforms, which was a land reform act was it. So it was implemented in the success was in Kerala. Okay, so they were able to redistribute the land to from the zamindars to the people. So that can be considered as equitable distribution of resources. And also the government schemes, that is also part of this equitable distribution of resources. Another thing, socialism can be interpreted in different ways. Various ways of interpretation can be there. One is the extreme state control, as in the Marxist socialism. For example, take an example of North Korea. North Korea, you know, right? Everything in North Korea is restricted. Okay, so state will be controlling everything. Even the people are also their rights are also controlled by the state only. But leave the political things. We'll take the economic concept of socialism. So the state is having the strict ownership of everything. Private players are not allowed, not at all allowed in countries like North Korea. Okay, so that is based on the Marxist socialism. Okay, another interpretation is like democratic forms that incorporate elements of capitalism. For example, take India. India we have democratic forms, or maybe take the example of Sweden. India, or maybe take the example of Sweden. So we have both capitalism. We are not against capitalism, but still we have not moved, we are still incorporating many elements of socialism. So that can also be there, and also obviously mixed interpretation will also be there. This is China. A very good example will be China. Okay. Here the state controls the key sectors. Key sectors the state will be controlled. In India that kind of thing is not there, but China the key sectors will be controlled by the state, but significant private participation is also there. So these are some of the various interpretation of this socialism. Okay, now let's see what is actually the evolution of socialism in India. So in pre-independence India, we are focusing on the uh, our main focus was equity and poverty alleviation. So we wanted socialism basically to alleviate poverty and ensure that there is equity in the society. So this time period means we have Nehru, Jawaharlal Nehru, and if we go again further, we have Dadabhai Nauroji. So like that, so they believed in this kind of socialism should be there for equity and poverty alleviation. So after that we have the International Congress economic agenda was also there. So again this also reflected socialist ideology, Gandhi, Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose. So all these people's ideologies were also inspiration for INC's economic agenda. So after independence we adopted a mixed economy model. Nehru, even though Nehru was more inclined towards socialism, we adopted a mixed economy model. So what do you mean by mixed economy? We had elements of both socialism as well as capitalism. Okay, but still, if we take in a wider way, then maybe we can say that we were more inclined towards socialism. Okay, and after that, another important thing which is coming is the Industrial Policy Resolution of 1956. So here also we ensured that there is a public sector dominance there. At least in the core industries, there is actually a public sector dominance is there, but still we were not completely against this privatization. After that, 5-year plans came. Okay, 5-year plans also emphasis on state-led economic growth. So here everywhere we can see that even though we are not completely against capitalism, we are more inclined towards socialism. Okay. Alright, so after that Indira Gandhi era came. So Indira Gandhi is very famous for socialist ideologies. So mainly the reason for this case is also the same thing only, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. So there only in the preamble itself we incorporated the term socialism. So we are almost completely moving towards socialism. One important thing is the nationalization of banks. Nationalization of banks which happened in 1967. Here the state started to control the banking or the financial sector, and also abolition of private purses. Maybe we can say it like social to ensure that there is no social inequality. Private purses means earlier the erstwhile princely state rulers, so they were given some allowances were given even after they gave up the political control. Okay, so that was also abolished. Okay, after that, a major reform is coming in 1999 onwards. So 1999 we had the economic liberalization or the new era of economic reforms. Here only we implemented the LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization and globalization. Okay, so here we are shifting from a strict socialism to a market oriented approach. So what do you mean by strict socialism? Like the extreme socialism can be seen in the North Korea. We were not following that. We were following a mixed economy only, but still we were focusing on. We were more inclined towards Nehruvian socialism, whether it be Indira Gandhi socialism and all. From there to a market-oriented approach, we opened our economy. We ensured that more private players are coming. All these things were ensured. So that is economic liberation era. All right. So now let's see what is actually the welfare state. Welfare state. So here capitalists fear that if we are focusing on very much on the capitalism, people will be again moving towards socialism. So some balance should be there between capitalism as well as socialism. For that, they said that we need not completely move towards a socialist ideology, but still within capitalism we can ensure that we are ensuring a welfare state. Okay, so that is actually the purpose of this one. So we need not abolish the private ownership. We need not completely abolish the private ownership, but we can have some redistributive mechanism. So this is actually the concept of this welfare state. So we need not completely abolish the private ownership, but we can go with some redistributive reforms. For example, schemes will be there, right? So we ensure that we ensure that even though the state is not the provider, some sort of reservation will be there, or some sort of what programs like Manrega. So that ensures that there is actually economic socialism. So Indian model is based on, we have not left all the socialistic principle. We have Gandhian socialism, we have all the socialist principles are there, and also democratic governance is also there. India is a democratic governance. So socialist principles can be seen in the welfare programs. Democratic governance can be seen in, even we are an electoral democracy only, right? So there we can see, and also market participation can also be seen, that is mixed economy, or maybe the private players are also there. So this is actually concept of welfare state and how it is implemented in India. Now let's see what happened in the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. So the term socialist added to preamble to emphasize that the state commitment to reduce state is commitment to reduce inequality. Okay, so this is the preamble. So here you can see that they have added socialism, socialist as well as secularism was also added. So these are the two terms which are challenged now. Okay, so the critic says that this was politically motivated and lacked democratic. Why? Because during this emergency period only, we implemented. We brought this 42nd Amendment Act. So at that time, consensus was not there. It was mostly the Prime Minister's wish, and Prime Minister was more inclined toward socialism. And after that, in the next government came in 1978. Next government came again. They avoided many of the things which were brought from the 42nd Constitution, but they retained the inclusion of socialism. They didn't touch this thing which was included in preamble. Okay. So now the Supreme Court, the petitioners are saying these things, and now Chief Justice Sanjay Khanna is clarified that socialism in India reflects a commitment to equality of opportunity and not uniformity. Okay, seeks to empower marginalized sections without stifling private enterprise. Socialism is interpreted flexible and not rigid. Okay, it is ensuring that we are moving towards a welfare state. We are moving towards a welfare state rather than a rigid economic model. So this is something which was emphasized by the Chief Justice of India. So equality as a constitutional ideal, that was mentioned in Article 14, 15 and 60. Okay, ensuring economic justice, political justice and even social justice. See a prelims practice question. With reference to inclusion of the term socialist in Indian Constitution, consider the following statement. Term socialist was added to preamble by 42nd Amendment Act 1976 to signify states' role in reducing inequality. That is correct. 44th Amendment Act 1978 reversed the inclusion of socialists. No, this was not done. Even though they reversed many other things, this was not done. So second statement is wrong. Supreme Court clarified that socialism in India signifies equality of opportunity and not rigid economic model. This is what was there in the slide which I have showed. This is also correct. Article 14, 15 and 16 reinforce constitutional commitment to equality and social justice. So this is also correct. So second statement is wrong. So correct answer will be 1, 3 and 4. Okay. Moving on to next article, zone of containment. So here it will be we'll be discussing regarding what is antimicrobial resistance, what is superbug syndrome. Okay. All right. So this will be coming in the science and technology part. Science and technology part. Okay. All right. So let's see a previous year question. Which of the following are reasons for occurrence of multi-drug resistance in microbial pathogens in India? Genetic predisposition of some people. So again, the same lines only. Okay, multi-drug resistance, that is basically antimicrobial resistance. So what is actually the context? There has actually been a growing threat of antimicrobial resistance and emphasis urgent need for global and national actions to combat it, both international level as well as national level. So what do you mean by antimicrobial resistance? What are antimicrobials and what are microbials? Microbials, for example, microorganisms. Microorganisms can be bacteria, it can be fungus, it can be other parasites, like that, it can be many things. So medicines that are used to prevent and treat infections from these pathogens like fungus, these are known as antimicrobials. Okay, so when we can say that there is actually an antimicrobial resistance is there. For example, if you are having a if you are taking a medicine, which is used to treat, for example, take we are taking an antibiotic. Antibiotic is used to treat bacterial infection. Okay, so if you are taking an antibiotic and after taking the antibiotic also it is not able to cure that infection, then we can say that we have developed an antimicrobial resistance. So the bacteria has developed a resistance to the medicine we are taking. Okay, so that is uh, antimicrobial resistance, and those microorganisms that develop antimicrobial resistance are sometimes referred to as super bugs. Okay, so this is a concept of antimicrobial resistance. So what are the causes of this antimicrobial resistance? One is a natural genetic process. Natural One is actually the natural genetic process. So we know, right, evolution is happening. So slowly after some time, based on the climatic conditions, based on many other things, naturally itself these microbes will be evolving. Another thing is overuse of antibiotics. Overuse of antibiotic means what? For example, if I was prescribed 5 tablets, and after having 5 tablets also, I am again thinking that okay, it will be helping for me. I am overusing that tablet. Sometimes even doctors will also be doing this. So this can also lead to antimicrobial resistance. Another thing is misuse in agriculture and livestock. So how it is affecting in agriculture and livestock? Because let's see this one. See this one. Sometimes animals are being treated using antibiotics. Antibiotics is not for the humans alone, animals, plants, everything, antibiotics is used. So we will be consuming this animal products, okay, meat or maybe the products as food. So again from here we will also be that kind of bacteria, that resistance we will also be getting. So that is one reason. Another thing is patients who are prescribed antibiotics, so they may resist, they will be having this antimicrobial resistance. So when they are in contact with other people, so in unhygienic situations and all, this can spread to those people also. So that is also another thing. So from human through environment, from animals also it can transmit. Okay. Another thing is incomplete treatment. Incomplete treatment means what? Sometimes a course of medicine is needed. To treat a particular bacteria, we need a course of medicine. For example, 5 tablets are needed. Sometimes we will be stopping in 3 itself. So at that time also, if you are not completing the course also, we will be developing antimicrobial resistance. Okay. Alright, so what is actually the impact of this antimicrobial resistance? Again, increasing the medical risk. For example, if you are going for a surgery, and if you are having this antimicrobial resistance is there, the medical procedure itself can be some medicines won't be affecting you. So at that time, maybe you need a different dose. So that issue is also there. So medical risk will be more. Broader effects on agriculture and food safety. If animals or plants are having this antimicrobial, it can lead to the decreased productivity, decreased farm productivity, decreased livestock productivity and all. Okay. Economic and healthcare cost. Obviously, normal bacteria antibiotic will be costing a less price only. So if you are having an antimicrobial resistance, means you need a higher dosage or maybe different tablets to ensure that you are crossing this antimicrobial, these superbugs can be treated. So that will be costly. So that is also another thing. So this actually the World Bank estimate AMR could result in $1 trillion additional healthcare cost by 2050. So this is a World Bank estimate, and this one is a World Health Organization estimate. Bacterial antimicrobial resistance directly caused 1.7 million global deaths in 2019. Okay, so these are some statistics and some of the initiatives in global level which was taken. One is Global Action Plan on Antimicrobial Resistance. Global Action Plan on Antimicrobial Resistance. So they focused on something known as One Health. One Health. So One Health means what? One Health means we will be considering both animal health as well as plant health, animal health as well as human health together. So that is known as One Health. Again, this was a initiative by WHO, quadripartite. Quadripartite was a here we'll be working closely with organizations like Food and Agricultural Organization to resist, and we are celebrating Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week from 18 to 24 November. Okay, so basically we are now in the this particular week, and also this is a very important initiative by World Health Organization, aware access, watch, reserve, classification by World Health Organization, and also WHO's another initiative is GLASS, Global Antimicrobial Resistance and Use Surveillance System. Okay. All right, now let's see some of the initiatives taken by India. One is Red Line campaign. Red Line campaign means what? In some antibiotics and all, you might have seen that there is actually a red line is there. So this red line, if this red line antibiotics are marked with red line, means it has to be given only with the prescription of the doctor. Okay, so that is red line. So basically, they are trying to avoid taking it without prescription or reducing the overuse of it. Okay. Another one we have is National Program on Antimicrobial Containment. Okay, so this was started in the 12th 5-year plan. 12th 5-year plan. Okay, so that is National Program on Antimicrobial Resistance. Next one is a National Action Plan on Antimicrobial. Again, here also they are adopting a One Health approach. Ensure that both human health as well as animal health both are considered. Again, after that we have the Delhi Declaration of AMR. Again, this is an interministerial agreement to underscore the commitment on. So what we can do to ensure that this is antimicrobial resistance is not prevalent. Okay. So doctors, it should start from the doctors itself. So they should ensure that and the people are not, the patients are not using their this antibiotics and all more. So they have to be careful with the prescriptions. And also regulation, more important regulation is also needed, like surveillance, how much antibiotics are being prescribed. So that kind of data surveillance is also needed. Government should also support more research and funding for better antibiotics so that it can ensure that this AMR is not there. Patients should be educated on realistic treatment expectation. Okay, like for example, if 5 tablets are prescribed, means they should not stop at 3. Sometimes when symptoms are less itself, we will be stopping that should not happen. And also fair access to vaccines, diagnostic and medicine. This is actually a general statement. So these are some of the ways in which we can treat antimicrobial resistance. So practice question, aware initiative sometimes in the news is associated with UNEP, WHO, UNICEF, WTO. Okay, so the correct answer is WHO to ensure that there is no to reduce a antimicrobial resistance. Okay, all right, so that's it for today's daily news analysis. And also there was an article on grab for measures which was regarding the Delhi pollution. Okay, so we have posted the link in the comment section. You can click on that and watch that article. So that's it for today. Thank you.